everyone, today we will study the poem Don't Call Me Anglo-Indian by Said Amanuddin. About the poet. He was born in India and migrated to America. Poetry unflies Indian clarity and American modernity. According to him, the poetry which is unflies Indian clarity and American modernity. His writing an Indian essence and American flavor. He's writing his poems with Indian essence and American flavor, and he writes about human experience and deep emotion favor. Distinguished style of writing resembles E. Cumming. Okay, his distinguished styles of writing the poem which resembles the E. Cummings. His notable works are Adventures of Aman and Germ, Challenger poems. Disliked, he was, the people call him Indo-Anglican, which he is disliked to be called Indo-Anglican. We will see in his poem. About the poem is, Said Amanuddin has innovative style in his poem. He writes in a different and amazing way. He does not use any kind of punctuation marks and capital letters in his poem, as you can see in his stanzas. He hates hyphens, and he divides his poems into sections and stanzas. And he starts the line at the margin and then explain it in the lines that follows. Okay, he just starts a line at the margin. He does not care about the punctuation and the capital letters like other poets do, and then he explains it in the lines that follows. Okay, and the theme of the poem, which is very important, as I am already saying in every poem, the theme of the poem is identity crisis. The people call him Anglo-Anglican, which he does not like, the colonial legacy and the diversity of literary expressions, his evolution of Indian English poetry. Okay, and we will now move forward to overview of the poem. I'm giving you the short overview of the poem. The poet's angry toward those people who categorize him into Indo-Anglican and put him along few poets. The poet does not want to be called an Indo-Anglican, and the people put him forward along the few writers who are Indo-Anglican, but he does not like to be called so. Poet says, I hate hyphens, I damn all hyphenate mind. Here the poet says that he just hates hyphens and all the people who have hyphenated mind. Does not want to be called only Indian or Anglo-Indian. He does not want to be called only Indian or Anglo or any Anglo-Indian type. He just want to be called as a poet. Now the summary. This poem is very interesting. So the first stanza is, the poem being a person who is lingering between two identities, right? Who is lingering between two identities, right? He considers such hyphenated terms invalid, null, and obscure. He says that he denies being considered as a representative of a confusing language which leads to loss of person's mind. Stanza 1. The poet being a person who is lingering between two identities, he considered such hyphenated terms invalid, null, and obscure. He says that he denies being considered as a representative of a confusing language which leads to loss of imagination. Whatever the people call him Indo-Anglican is nothing but an abortive affair, because he knows it's not him, whatever the common public name him. So here, in stanza 1, the poet rejects the term Anglo-Anglican because it does not truly represent his identity. He refuses to be defined by a colonial label. Now the second stanza is, the poet denounces and damns all the labels he has not regarding his origin and identity, and all the label makers who can themselves valid to categorize him, because as for him, those label maker none other than an unlighted soul and prejudiced and unstable mind. He refuses to be a spiceman in a lab, to be securitized by an observer, just to be labeled for the letter observer curiosity, which means that he emphasizes his deep connection to India, asserting that his roots, emotions, and expression and his experiences that all are Indian, despite his mixed heritage which is given by people and the unstable mind people who are calling him Anglo-Anglican. He totally refused to that. In third stanza, the poet says that the poet doubtful why the label makers call him Indo-Anglican, because as for his memory, still he has that essence of his childhood in him. He states that reference to the geographical connection he had in his childhood. He says his soul still feels connected to Kaveri, an Indian river that rises from Brahmagiri range in the Western Ghats, Chamundi Hills in Mysore, his birthplace, which has the Chamundeshwari temple at the top of the hill. The eyes of the goddess Chamundeshwari smiling while slaying the demon, Chamundeshwari smiling while slaying the demon, and Vrindavan fountain. So he claims that he cannot be called Indo-Anglican as if he is an Indian by birth, because he also feels Indian. In third, he says that the poet distances himself from British colonial rule, okay, and he's stating that he does not owe loyalty to the British and does not share their history because he's a pure Indian and does not want to be called people to him an Indo-Anglican because he knows all the things about India. The fourth stanza is, he says that just because he feels Indian, it does not wish to be confined to his childhood and identity. He says he has used languages to lead away for label makers, to mark him whatever they call him. He has twisted his belief to force the truth out. He once celebrated prejudiced thought. He rose among others, and he has used his imagination to flow across the universe, which means that he expresses frustration at being created as an outsider, right? And he, despite his love for India, his question why his identity is based on his ancestry rather than his lived experience, okay? In the fifth stanza, the poet goes to the extent of leaving the world and go on roam with the dead poet, okay, who was once like him. He says that instead of leaving the world that label him Indo-Anglican, cripples him, adding a remote group of writers he would drown happily in life poet. He listed the names of the poets he would like him to spend time with. They are Kalidas, an Indian classical author, Kabir Das, an Indian mystic poet saint, influence Hinduism, Bhakti movement, Dante Alighieri, an Italian poet Omar Khayyam, a Persian poet, mathematician, and Lippo. Here the poet describes that the poet proudly declares his Indian identity. He just emphasizing that his language, culture, and spirit are all Indian, and spending the time with them, the people who label him as an Indo-Anglican, despite them he loves to spend the time with the following list I've given you: the Kalidas, an Indian classical author, Kabir Das. So here he just proudly declares his Indian identity. The sixth and the final stanza is, the poet says that the people call him Indo-Anglican. He admits that and write in English, the language that William Shakespeare and John Keats have thought. But he denies their claim, as he cannot be confined by any religious, culture, or national identity because he is a poet. He enlightens that he has lived 40 centuries under various names, and in this present life he is called Amanuddin. This final statement reflects Keats' idea of the self and the soul. So he concludes by rejecting imposed label given by the people to him and asserting that he is simply Indian, not Anglo-Indian or anything else. And this poem is powerful assertion of national and cultural identities, okay? And this is rejecting, and he is rejecting colonial era classification in favor of a self-defined sense of belonging, okay? So here we'll end this poem. There is one question related to this poem, may ask you in exams, why he disliked to be called Indo-Anglican? Because he is allergic to this term. First of all, he is allergic to this term, and he does not like to a confused mixture of between different thing of culture and language, okay? And this poem which express you that the poet really frustrated with labeled as Anglo-Indian, okay? And this poem really highlight the themes of identity, cultural belonging, and rejection of colonial classification, okay? Thank you everyone for listening. Please